Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I've been a state trooper in North Carolina for coming up on 14 years now.
Okay. And what does your typical work schedule look like?
I work 8 on, 6 off, 8 days straight, 6 days off, typically 11-hour shifts, and I'm permanent third shift.
Okay, so before becoming a law enforcement officer, what were your expectations about the impact you would have on the public?
I guess I was thinking that I would arrest criminals, get bad guys off the street, and enforce law.
Okay. And before being a law enforcement officer, what were the expectations the impact would have on you?
Well, always liked people, helping people in my family, etc. So the idea was the same when I came into law enforcement, to help people.
And what motivates you to do your job efficiently?
I've always taken pride in my work. I've always um, wanted to do things kind of above and beyond, I guess, and I've always tried to make an effort to do
Okay. And as a law enforcement officer, what has been your greatest accomplishment?
that. You know, I guess being there for the guys I work with, as well as the people I deal with in the public that may have questions for me and things like that, following up on collisions and things like that. I actually enjoy doing all I can to help those people, whether they have a question about the law or they need me to help them show them how to do something.
And what has been your greatest failure?
Well, you get into law enforcement as long as I have, you do tend to become complacent. I try to remind myself not to do that on a consistent basis. But you consistently making traffic stops and doing investigations, things like that, you find yourself just being another day, another traffic stop, and you're not paying attention to things you should pay attention to.
Okay, now, having been a law enforcement officer for some time, do you think you have had an impact on society?
I think I have. Obviously, the idea, at least for the highway patrol, is to enforce speed limit violations, seatbelt violations, things of the nature. The whole idea being that we're encouraging people to slow down. That that if they were to be involved in an accident, it wouldn't be as severe than it could be.
Okay, and do you think that you are seen differently by society?
More so now than when I started in 2003. I think I've had more negative feedback from people that I've dealt with here probably in the past year or two than I probably had 10 years ago. And I really hope that changes.
And has this changed how you feel towards society?
Unfortunately, yes. As you can imagine, being in law enforcement, most of the people that we deal with are nice, but you do deal with those people who are not happy to see you, don't say such pleasant things about you, and if you deal with that on a pretty daily, consistent basis, yes, that will affect your opinion of people in general.
Okay, now, how, if at all, has your time as a law enforcement officer affected your health?
Um, well, working late, uh, swing shifts do tend to change. It will, affect you physically there. I've been hit head on by a drunk driver, sustained some injuries because of that. Broke my leg, arrested an individual before, um, and things of that nature tend to affect you physically and emotionally.
Okay, and what was the worst call that you can remember that you have ever had to respond to?
Well, it wasn't necessarily a call. It was a traffic stop. Had an individual spinning his tires, going the opposite direction. I stopped that individual. Upon dealing with him, he was clearly very nervous. I got him out of the vehicle, um, started to search him, found some drugs on his person. That resulted into a foot chase that went a pretty considerable distance. Then we got into a physical altercation with each other, at which point in time he was able to remove one of my weapons from my gun belt, and resulted in me having to fatally shoot that individual. So that was probably the worst situation I was involved in this job.
And what do you like least about your job?
Um, well, as you can imagine, we generate a lot of cases. I take pride in the work that I do and the cases that I generate, and you would be amazed how many cases get disposed of, you know, on the legal court side of it. And there's been some situations that, you know, the case was solid, but for whatever legal loophole applied at the time, that case was disposed of. So that's probably the most frustrating thing I deal with in this job.
Okay, and if somebody asked you, just a general person, how would you convince them that the work you do is valuable? Do you have a story that you could share?
Well, in a sense, yes. Again, as a state trooper, we enforce traffic violations, but at the same time, we investigate severe and fatal collisions. When we do those investigations, we'll deal with anything from, you know, a small child being killed in a car wreck to an entire family potentially being killed in a car wreck. And a lot of times, and most of the times, it's due to either impaired drivers or speed, as well as texting. That's actually been a big problem here recently as well. So I guess I've taken those situations and try to encourage people to be very mindful of those types of things, because there really are dire consequences to them if the worst were to happen.
Okay, and other than the situation you mentioned earlier, have there ever been any other situations where you feared for your own safety?
Yeah, I've stopped quite a few cars in situations where um, persons were armed with weapons, stolen guns, considerable amount of drugs, considerable amount of people in the car. During those types of things, absolutely, I've been very concerned, and there's been a couple times I've been scared. You know, I've been afraid that these people are going to assault me or hurt me.
Okay, and by participating in this interview, what is your hope to contributing to to the humanization of law enforcement officers?
Well, we're all human. I think that's a pretty obvious thing. Just want people to kind of take away from this that we're just simply out here performing a job, like any other job anybody else is out there doing. Granted, we are in the public light, and we're probably the first contact you'd have with government. But I would hope people realize that, again, we're just out here uh, working day to day like everybody else, and want to go home to our families like everybody else. And hope people realize that, you know, the effect and the toll it has on us on a physical and mental level when they, you know, say and do some of the things that they have said and done here recently. You've probably seen on TV.
And is there anything else, personal or professionally, that you would like to share that we did not discuss?
No, I'll get back to the last thing I just said. Just realize that, yeah, again, we're all human. We're all out here, again, performing a job, doing a job, living day to day, with a hope in the end that we get to retire and enjoy our lives with our family.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right.